Beep, 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 beep. Morning all. What a funny day it was yesterday. Right. Costa Coffee. Sick. So Costa Coffee and then Doc Martin. Right. With sort of pictures of happy people with no tits. Happy women with no tits. It's unbelievably sick, isn't it? Don't you think? Unbelievably sick. Right. So this multicoloured Doc Martens and Costa Coffee. So you can buy a coffee now and look like a twat at the same time. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I think boycotts of both are due. And a third boycott should be one for Manchester Pride. I put a picture yesterday on my Twitter timeline if you can find it. The latest advertising for their Pride. It's got a pink triangle on it. Not a mention of the word gay, but it's got a pink triangle, which, by the way, they've altered. They can't help themselves, can they? Can't help themselves. It's disgusting behaviour, and that's Manchester Pride. But the theme of Pride, apparently, is stand by your trans. Well, that's just asking for trouble. Meadow? Mr. Meadow, where are you? Stand by your trans. There isn't anybody who isn't eventually going to think of that in terms of that. I mean, it's a great song, but it's a dreadful bloody idea, isn't it? Because the song's about, isn't it? Your bloke might be a violent bastard, but stand by him. Isn't that what it is? I thought it was. Wasn't it? What was it? What was the name? Tammy Wynette, wasn't it? It's a great song. I love it, but it's not a particularly good message. Sometimes. It's that, isn't it? How did it start? Down and down, 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 down. No. Sometimes it's hard to be a tosser. Dum ba bum ba bum. Giving up your love for a fake fan. Stop it, Barry. Now, as you know, Richard Dawkins, not Dawkins, I keep saying that. Richard, how do I say his name? Dawkins, that's right. Dawkins, it's Richard Dawkins, isn't it? That's right, yeah. So, Suzanne Moore, hello Suzanne, how are you? Who once opined that she'd blocked me by mistake because she's old. Suzanne, come on. Suzanne has written a piece called, you'll remember it from the other day when I did one, it's in Unheard, called Why Did Jacqueline Rose Erase Women, right? Jacqueline Belfort, quel dommage, right? Why did she erase women? Her attack on biological sex is patriarchy in drag. That's what Suzanne's saying. So let's have a look at what some of this is, because it's great having people comment on this, because it's such nonsense. What is a woman? Hoping he might be able to answer this vexatious question, the New Statesman turned to Richard Dawkins. In the resulting piece, the biologist expresses sympathy with those with gender dysphoria, but is unequivocal that a woman is an adult human female, free of Y chromosomes. Sex, he writes, is binary. Now, the inside guff is, as I told you earlier, some of the nutter people that work at the Nerd threw their toys out of the pram, so they had to get somebody else to write another bit. In the interest of balance, says Suzanne, an opposing view was deemed necessary. The counter-argument published last week was made by Jacqueline Rose, a professor at the Birkbeck Institute for the Humanities. According to Dawkins, her response does not make any coherent sense, which he suggests may be a badge of honour among postmodernists. That's a beautifully passive-aggressive statement. I'm a long-time admirer of Rose. Right, okay, Suzanne. So, really, right, her insights on psychoanalysis have suffused my own writing, and I loved her book Mothers, which, as it happens, I reviewed in the New Statesman. I described her as one of our very best cultural critics. How the mighty fall, eh, Suzanne? Yeah, even I was surprised at how poor her recent article was. It's horrible, isn't it? It's like it's like meeting somebody who you think's wonderful off the TV and then they turned out to be a prat. It's like that, isn't it? I understand that unless you are Zizek, you have to sign up to a lot of nonsense if you're to survive on the international academic circuit. Unlike Dawkins, though, I am weirdly steeped in postmodern theory. Weirdly steeped. It's a great word, isn't it? I thought steeping was the process of filling something with alcohol. Suzanne? Right, weirdly steeped in postmodern theory. In the 80s, I got an interview with Baudrillard and tried to sell it to The Guardian, but they had never heard of him. You're showing your academic knickers here, Suzanne, I'm afraid. From early on, I could see how much of this fashionable theory, rooted in a rejection of grand narratives about the truth, does not accommodate feminist politics. It doesn't accommodate anything. When I was teaching American students about postmodernism and Judith Butler, it became even more apparent that much of our argument was a response to Marxism, that postmodernism was born of the failure of revolutionary politics. That dichotomy is always there, Suzanne, isn't it? And it's a kind of muddled sort of, how can it look like one thing and then eschew it? When you put the whole thing together, don't you? You know, the old postmodernism and queer theory and gender identity, all that nonsense. How can those two things look so alike but, you know, be totally different? It's almost like there's two sexes, isn't it? Right, okay. But there were good bits, and the Rose article reminds me strongly of something I wrote in 1998. If the whole question of power cannot be tackled, it is because these new hysterics with their male bodies and optional female subjectivities cannot speak of a desiring subject who is actually a flesh and blood woman. I was talking here about male theorists rather than trans people, but I return it to it in an attempt to understand how, in a call for generosity, Rose has written a piece that is so completely dismissive of women, our concerns, rights, bodies and fears. Honest to goodness, I love your writing, I really do, but you're giving this idiot more than she deserves. Are you slightly upset? Because it's a bit of fangirling, Suzanne, isn't it? This is like what happened with me with various people I know. Just turned out they crumbled to bits. She begins by claiming that a central goal of feminism is to repudiate the idea of womanhood. Is it? What is womanhood if there's no such thing as a woman? Does she mean femininity? Yes, I think she does. Right? In which case she has to split it into two things. The positive sides of femininity and the negative sides of femininity. Which she doesn't do, does she? On the threat of sexual violence, she suggests that it is the category of women as much as the safety of women that needs protection. That was the bit I found weird, because if you saw my other one, Suzanne, I talked about Camille Paglia and what her statements were around this subject. But it's... So, the category of women as much as the safety of the women that needs protection, she says. That category, she thinks, this is Suzanne talking again about Jacqueline de Belfort or Quel right, should include women who were once men, right? Women who were once men, right? Women who think they're men. Yeah, women who think they're men. Let's take that idea for a walk, shall we? Out of the academy and to Iran and Afghanistan, to places where women die in menstrual huts or undergo FGM, where women-only spaces are compelled. She complains that the idea of female is some kind of primordial condition, as if it were the bedrock of all the limitations to follow. She's actually right here. This is the unfortunate reality in many parts of the world. Well, if it's unfortunate reality in many parts of the world, I would argue that she's partly right. But she can't see the wood for the trees. Of course, she uses the de Beauvoir quote, one is a woman, one is not a woman, one becomes one, but predictably chooses to ignore the rest of it. No biological, psychological, or economic destiny defines the figure that the human female acquires in society. It is civilization as a whole that develops this product, intermediate between female and eunuch, which one calls feminine. The second part of the quotation is key. The construction of gender is social, and there is a difference between being female and femininity, which is learnt. I said in the piece that I did that there was context missing here. Thank you, Suzanne, for filling in the context there. Rose's preference for referring to females as opposed to women, she says, is because Andrea Longshu argues, he's a twat, right, argues that female was developed in the 19th century as a way of referring to black slaves. As a result, it is historically naive and radical and racially blind to assume it's a neutral biological category. To which Suzanne has written, WH, whoa, exclamation mark. You must have fallen off your chair when you read that. I did. Right, okay. Female was in common uses long before the 19th century, and I think Rose does Longshu down here. Really? Come on. Oh, Longshu, right, so, God. Longshu is a controversial, often witty trans author who starts her book Females with everyone is female and everyone hates it. For Longshu, a female identity is one of self-negation and it says effable, not affable, effable, you know, effable, right? Poor and adult passivity, which is precisely why she transitioned. If the answer to what is a woman is this person, then the majority of the population, women, are tragic failures. Perhaps we are, but at least I know that male... Perhaps we are, but at least, Suzanne says, I know that male babies are not born with spermatozoa, as Rose asserts. Rose goes on to argue that the act of transitioning challenges a binary which reinforces the most aggressive of gender stereotypes. For her, it is an imaginative leap. Others might call it a fiction and listen to the accounts of detransitioners who can never experience parenthood or sexual pleasure. Others might say they are being sold a fantasy, that the sex body has limitations, whatever the imagination says, and that cynical drug companies and surgeons are cashing in. I want you to go and read this because Suzanne's written an interesting piece, so I'm going to stop there for today. But it's worth considering what Suzanne has to say. And I think that it's interesting that the argument again, even let's take this out for a walk a bit. You said, Suzanne, didn't you? To Iran and to Afghanistan, but yet it still has to return to its roots, to the academic, newspeak, and to what most people would be gobbledygook. So I think you've illustrated perfectly to me that this stuff should have remained in academia, should never have left it, and that despite the arguments for and against feminism that have been going on now for a very long time indeed, that our ability to look back now gives us time to examine what were the good bits and what were the bad bits. I think the worry I have with something like this is, whereas I was taking the mickey out of her, Jacqueline de Belvoir, Cultists, I would be very, very remiss if I gave her even an inch. I think what she did there, what she did in that article, essentially ruins her reputation. Because there's only two possibilities, and I think we know which one it is. She's either stupid, or she sold herself down the river through fear or cupidity. So which is it? But Suzanne, thank you for a great article. I urge you to go and read Suzanne's article. It's very interesting, and there's much more to it than I've given you today, just to have a look at. Yeah, that's it. I just like the idea of Suzanne going, whoa, and falling off her chair. It amuses me. Okay, thank you very much, Suzanne. Onwards, people. Be a warrior teacher. Buy me a coffee. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Usual stuff. I'll see you later.